All for attending. Let's start the Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting. We must be done by 6 because we have the Finance Committee meeting then. And just for those of you who are not aware or forgot, the committees that I chair, I run it informally. They're open sessions. Of course, we don't all talk at once, but it's informal. It's for everyone here to participate if they'd like to. So the reason for this meeting, we are not going to be voting on any legislation. The purpose of this meeting tonight is strictly informational. And the reason for that is over the last, many months, a number of us have gotten phone calls or emails from constituents who are concerned about our streets and our sidewalks, and they have questions, and they don't understand who's responsible for what, and when things get done, how things get put on a schedule. And in all fairness, we have a number of residents that are coming into the city or they're moving out of the city. And so I think this is a good opportunity for us to talk about our streets and sidewalks and provide information to those people who are new to our community who don't know. So there is an agenda, and again, informal, very informal. So we have our in-house experts, Pat and Nino here, and Jansen, who are being relied upon to provide answers to questions because of their extensive background and knowledge and having been with the city for so many years. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming to this meeting. We did try to have this meeting before, but unfortunately we had some troubles trying to get this scheduled with people's schedules, people being out of town, so this is why we are having it today. Okay, so let's get started. On the agenda first is the sidewalks. As we all know, we have a number of sidewalks in our community that need some work. And some are damaged. They're damaged by a variety of reasons. And residents want to know who's responsible for what and how things get done. So one of the first things that I think people need to understand is there is a schedule. And sidewalks that need some replacement, get put on this yearly schedule based on a review and a priority schedule. So with that, Nino, Patrick, do you want to address how items get placed on the schedule and what is your mechanism for getting them on the schedule for Sure. repairs?
Yeah, we've done a couple of sidewalk programs now, and basically we picked out areas, started in the center of town, the older areas, and we do a walking survey to determine if the sidewalk meets, per ordinance, we have certain criteria where if the threshold's met, the sidewalk needs to be replaced. So we have that, and then we also have a lot of complaints about sidewalks, and we maintain all of those. Mm-hmm. We go out and inspect those when we get them.
And when we say, and I'm sorry, when we say we, who exactly is we?
The engineering department goes out and checks. If there is a problem, then we call service department. Nino could get into that a little bit. But those are all maintained on a list, and that is actually what spurred. We're doing a project yet this fall, and it is basically the high priority areas, the areas where we had the most consistent complaints, mm-hmm. those being North Broadway, Hillview Way, Alexandria, and Bristol. Just those four, through our summary that we keep the log of, mm-hmm. those were the highest areas and ones we could get to right away.
Now, when they get on the list, mm-hmm. what is this criteria that allows them to be added to the list?
The biggest and most consistent one is the height differential, the tripping hazard. If it's 2 inches or greater, then that's the threshold that needs to be repaired or maintained one way or the other on a temporary basis. Mm-hmm. There's others too, like cross slope, if it's tipping the wrong way, if the slope is too excessive, if it's in, I think it's 3 or 4 cracks in it, stuff like that. There's 6 or 7 different items on that, in the ordinance that triggers when the sidewalk needs to be replaced.
Okay.
I did notice you mentioned who's responsible for repairs.
Right.
Property owners are responsible for their own sidewalk. The city steps in if the problem is caused by a street tree or a city utility, water line, storm sewer, that kind of thing. The sidewalks we're doing this year are all caused by city street trees.
And explain to the rest of us what specifically you mean. How is it damaged by the sewer or the trees? And I know, Jansen, you're heavily involved in that since you're the tree
You wanna take
master.
Okay.
Thank you. So, obviously, our tree lawns vary in size throughout town. There's areas where there's no tree lawn, Huntington Street, good example. There's areas where there's tree lawn that's maybe 3 feet wide, and it all depends on how the road was installed, the width of the right-of-way, et cetera. So, many years ago, our trees were planted by volunteers that may or may not have had the education or the foresight to think about putting the right tree in the right spot. So we're kind of dealing with the results of that now. So we do have tree lawns in town that are a little bit smaller than the trees are suitable for. So what happens is the tree roots continue to grow. As the trees grow, the sidewalk, 4 inches thick, is in a bed of gravel, which retains moisture and has airspace, both things tree roots love, and they continue to grow. And as they grow, the sidewalks tend to break at the control joints that are there. And every year, the problem gets worse and worse. So as Pat said, we are seeing a lot of this occur now on trees that were planted 20, 30 years ago in some of the developments across town. It's probably one of the biggest challenges that we have with the sidewalk program as well, because we have to be careful about how many tree roots we're going to rip out. Mm-hmm. Is it going to affect the stability of the tree and put a greater liability for the city? So those situations where it's tree related, our city foresters looking at every one of those and making that determination.
And what is your mechanism for fixing those issues that are caused by the trees?
Yes, there's basically 3 things that can happen. One, we could pull the slab and grind the root that's causing the problem, or roots. We could vertically cut along the edge of the sidewalk to also eliminate the root and potentially reduce further sidewalk damage down the road, at the expense of tree health. So that's kind of a balancing act. We can't just go through and clear cut along a 34-inch oak tree that's a foot away from the sidewalk with a stump grinder, because that's gonna potentially cause tree failure. So it's either grind the root and cut laterally along the edge of sidewalk within the critical root zone, basically, or remove the tree.
Okay. And those trees will eventually be replaced?
Yeah,
After a
the
period of
trees would
time.
be replaced as long as the site is suitable, meaning that there's no other conflicts, water service, gas service, storm sewer, sanitary connections, all things that we look at now. Mm-hmm. If we find any of those in close proximity, it's probably not going to be replaced, but maybe there'll be another site on the property where it could go. And more than likely, it'll be replaced with a tree that's appropriate for the site.
Okay.
If I may, Ms. Hare. So with our temporary repairs, once we're notified of a deflection, as Pat was talking about, our street department will go out with asphalt and we ramp up that deflection. So we'll make it so it's safe regardless of who's responsible. So they're not all street related or tree related.
Right.
Sometimes you have a sinkhole on the backside and it might be related to a property owner's issue and it affected the sidewalk. So we mitigate all hazards regardless of who's responsible. That gets vetted out later. So we'll ramp them up. Now granted, some of the asphalt stays there for a couple of years depending on when the notification comes out and there's a program. But the complaints come in from all over. They'll come from the PD if there's an injury. they'll let us know, they take photos, they'll come in from council members, they'll come in from the public. And again, as Pat stated, we have a database and you just keep track of those and try to handle them on a priority basis. And if it's too bad, we'll pull the sidewalk out. I know Mr. Coyne called one in and we didn't even realize it was like 9 inches in the air. And that wasn't part of the streets that are being addressed. So we went over there because it was so drastic and pulled it.
Okay.
And we'll do our best to get it replaced with concrete here shortly with one of our contractors of the street department.
Okay. And when you go and work on that sidewalk, do you notify the homeowners that the slab is in front of, that you're going to be working on it, or what you did?
So we do, if they're home, the supervisors will knock on the door, let them know. In certain instances, the complaint came from the homeowner, and they'll realize that we were there. And then it goes into a database, which Corey from engineering, he's the engineering technologist, has a running database, and he works with Jansen's folks and share the addresses and the complaints and work off of that.
Okay. When the sidewalk repair is the responsibility of the homeowner, the city works with the homeowner to either recommend a contractor or pool the work together so as to reduce the cost to the homeowner?
Yeah, are you speaking about our sidewalk programs we've done in the past?
We'll talk about both of them.
In those programs, we go out in a given area, do the survey, the visual survey. If there's a problem with the sidewalk, we document it, take a picture, bring it back to the office, and then we have to do the title research to find out who's the property owner.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have all those, then we do send letters, and we give them a certain amount of time, I think it's 90 days or something, to repair the sidewalk on their own.
Okay.
And these are sidewalks that have nothing to do with tree damage or anything. If they don't, then they are, we inform them, we'll replace it with our city program, but you will be receiving a bill for this when we're done.
Okay.
It's kind of their advantage. We do kind of en masse. We probably get a much better price than they could individually. Though some people fix it on their own. That's just a do-it-yourselfer type of thing. So that's how our program works.
Okay.
And to add to that, we have that sidewalk program, which is going to start hopefully next week. The contractor's on board. We received a couple phone calls from residents because they were out painting, the engineering folks were out painting, and I think Jansen's guys were painting the blocks that are going to be removed, right? So the homeowners are calling and saying, hey, we have a couple slabs that we're responsible for. Can we piggyback on the program? Of course, they'll be responsible for paying individually to the contractor, and when Pat and I talked to the contractor, he's willing to take those on. It'll be cheaper for the resident because the contractor's there and get one cement truck and multiple loads instead of, infrequent. So that's how that works as well.
Okay.
One question?
Sure.
Thank you. Patrick, you said that you would generate a bill and give it to the property owner. What are the methods of payment that the property owner has available to them?
They can pay it all up front. If they don't want to pay it, then they could be assessed on their taxes over, I think it's 5 years. That sound right, Keith? I thought the last. I think so, but.
Assessed on their property tax bill?
Correct,
Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
if they don't pay it up front.
Thank you.
Yes.
When you do inspections, you walk around, start, downtown workout. What about those areas that don't have any sidewalks in front of properties? What happens with those?
Like, you're
Like
talking about-
Prospect, South Prospect, there's no sidewalks on the east side of the road.
so what happens?
Yeah, do you then notify property owners that they should install a sidewalk?
Oh,
if everybody else
we've never
has,
done
or?
that, no. Yeah, that's something I guess we could think about, but no, we've never done that.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions for these gentlemen? Yes, Denny.
Microphone? Denny, get a microphone, please. Thank you.
When the city's done full reconstruction of a street, and then there's, I think Guilford Boulevard was one of them, that there was no sidewalks. And at that time, the city added sidewalks. There was no cost to the homeowners then. But that was areas where there were no sidewalks to start with. And I believe there's been a couple other areas that when we did complete street reconstruction, where they replaced the water line and the storm sewer and stuff, if there's no sidewalks, they'll place sidewalks there.
Will that happen with Blake Avenue? I know that's scheduled for next year, replacement of Blake. And will there be a sidewalk then for the south side of the road?
There will be a sidewalk on the south side, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, did you have a question? Comment?
No, I think what Denny was talking about, like when we redid West Park, when we redid Guilford, because we were doing everything, we took care of the sidewalks, we didn't charge the homeowners anything, if it was
Correct.
part of the larger project.
Right, right.
Natalie?
Thank you, what happens if they defer and get it on their tax assessment, and then they move before the 5 years is up? Does it stay with the property?
It stays with the property, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Any additional sidewalk information you want to share with us that we haven't touched on?
One quick item, we look at settling, if it's not tree-related, settling from 25 years ago when the developer put them in, natural settling of utilities. We don't take responsibility for those. That's fall on the homeowner, property owner.
Okay. All right. Moving on, item 2 on the agenda, streets. When we have our ward meetings, we've had multiple questions about speed limits on certain roads and why is it 25 here, 35 here, 45 there. I think there's a misunderstanding in the community as to who is responsible for those speed zones on certain streets. Do you want to talk to that?
Sure. For a city street, it's our jurisdiction to determine what the speed limit should be. Like a neighborhood, they're all 25, mostly 25. But the state highways, which would be Route 18, 57, Route 3, and 42, even within the city limits, they are governed by basically state rules. And we don't have the ability to supersede those rules. Those are assigned by the state, and for good reason. You know, they do a lot of study of this. So those 4 state routes, we don't have much say, if any, on the speed limit.
Okay. Comments, questions about that? Paul?
Patrick, you said that 42 is a U.S. highway, not a state highway.
Correct. It's
And
US 42.
we have a little more latitude in saying what the speed limit's going to be on that street.
Not that I'm aware of, I guess. I
Well,
could look
it's
into it.
25, because we
Yeah.
said so. Okay. The state routes have made it 35 because they said so.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So as with the sidewalks, explain the process of repairing a city street and the sources of funding.
Okay. Every year, we do an annual concrete street repair project, which we're in the midst of right now. And that is developed in conjunction between the street department and engineering department, and that's citywide. Basically, we're viewing all the city streets and determining which is the highest priority for repair and replacement. That project is 100% funded by the city through the 108 fund. We don't get grants for that, that's ours. Now, we do have a lot of other projects, street reconstruction projects. Blake Avenue is mentioned, for instance. West Smith, we're getting ready for North Huntington, a lot in the works. Those are typically funded through a combination of grants and 108 funds. There's a lot of grants of it, like, for instance, State Road, which we're just starting now, the design process. Actually, it's on Finance Committee tonight to get the design consultant on board. That is a total, right now, I think we have 3 different grants, and we're going after a couple others. Hopefully, those are successful, and that'll reduce the city's share of it. But that's, on a big project like that, that's typical to try and get several grants, several pots of money. The 42 project that was completed a couple years ago, where we ODOT widened it, that was an ODOT project. The city did have a share in that. I think the total project was 20-some million. Our share was roughly about 2 million for various reasons, but that was an ODOT project. We certainly involved, but that was ODOT. Same with 18. The 18 project similar to that.
Okay.
There's also, not to make it too complicated, there's several designated federal highways. First of all, the state routes are considered federal highways, but then like West Smith Road, Guilford, State Road, Huntington, they're all qualified as federal highways, and that's a good thing because that opens up federal grants for us. And that's one of the state road grants that we're going for.
Why are they considered federal highways?
There's a federal highway classification map, and it's based on traffic, route. It's a documented map that actually starts at the state level, goes through NOACA. We're allowed to comment on it. We can request changes to it, but it's, controlled. I'm not sure if ODOT or the federal, it must be FHA that's the final say-so on that.
Could it be because of the truck traffic moving products in and out along those roads? Question mark? I really don't know. I'm
Yeah.
trying to think of a logical reason for that.
Yeah, there's, as you know, we had a referendum many years ago, and some of those roads are not supposed to have any through truck traffic. And we've never faced any pushback from that, so I assume that that's our jurisdiction.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We've all seen an increase in traffic on our city roads. It's a problem throughout the day, not just on our way to school, on our way back and forth from work. It's throughout the day, especially on our main streets. And questions have come up. Can we widen these streets, or can we put a light here, or could we put a light there to make it safer for pedestrians and drivers? Touch on the processes that the city has to go through in order to, let's say, widen a street or put in a turning lane.
Yeah, for putting in a turning lane, we would first study it first to make sure it's justified.
And when you say doing a study, who all gets involved in those studies?
That would be through my office, and we would typically hire a consultant, a traffic consultant, and they would do a traffic count. They come out and do their survey and then produce a report saying whether or not it's justified or not. Now, if it's a city road, we can do whatever we want. We don't have to wait for a justification. That could be a little dangerous, though, that, this gives weight to spending the public money for a very qualified reason. What was the next part of that question?
The process through, let's say, widening a road, putting in a turn lane
Yeah.
on a state road.
That's something we just gather information and we get requests. If we know we're doing a project, we always look at the turning radiuses, possibility of widening for, if it's going to be an improvement to add turn lanes or lengthen turn lanes. That's all part of the design process.
And that also goes through the state and through ODOT, correct?
If it's a state route. Now, we do use ODOT protocols for that design process, but if it's not a state route, it's up to us.
And in the terms of a timetable for conducting these studies, give us the background. We know at times, and I'm a rather impatient person myself, so I'll just use myself as an example. How come it takes so long for some of this stuff to get done?
Like what stuff?
Well, if we want to put widen the road or put a light somewhere. I think this is part of the process that the city goes through with the other people who contribute to the research to
Right.
decide whether or not a light will go here or
Yeah.
a street gets widened or turn lane gets added.
Yeah. Well, for traffic signal installation, there's, through the state, a list of warrants. Most of them are based on traffic volume. Getting something like that done, in fact, we just did it at Elmwood. It's about a 2-month process, turnaround from when we tell the consultant to start until we get a report back. The process after that, if a signal is justified, that is going to take some time because you have to design it, you have to find funding for it, and then, of course, you have to construct it. So that could be anywhere from a year to 2 years if it's a go.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions? While we have We have a couple more minutes left. Anyone? Okay. I know the residents of the community are very concerned about the street traffic, the safety of our pedestrians. And I know your departments, every time I contact you, you guys have been quick to respond, and I certainly appreciate that. So I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you.
So, anyone else before we close this meeting, get ready for our next one? Paul?
I'm good, thank you.
All
Chet?
good.
All
Thank you.
good? All right, thank you, gentlemen. This meeting is adjourned.